Now, so everybody mute yourself if you're not muted. I think everybody is muted. This is our 10th virtual meeting, right? We've been having this REIA for about a year and a half. And since COVID, we have been virtual. And there's a big announcement at the end because I think we're going to have our first in-person meeting next week. Just a quick peek at a project I'm working on. So, talk about today's agenda. First 2 minutes will be just an introduction. Then the next 3 minutes will be the state of the current real estate market, what's going on in my business. The next 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to do estimating repairs, part 2 of 2, right? Last meeting, we did exterior. This meeting, we're going to do interior, but I'm going to recap that. And the whole, I'm recording this, and the last meeting was recorded too. Everybody can hear me, right? Okay, good. And the last 5 minutes, we're talking about how I can help you. And there's also a big announcement, which I already gave away, about having a live meeting. And we're going to talk, we're going to continue going till 7 or 7:30, whenever people run out of questions. I won't stop before 7, but at 7:30, I'm going to give it up. Okay, so first, who I am, if you don't know who I am. My name is Michael Pinter. I bought my first house on Long Island in 1996. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2013, so I was part-time for many years before that. I have 17 years in the real estate finance experience, which is the mortgage business. That's when I was doing it part-time. The first 4 years in this business, I was buying at auctions and rehabbing. And then about 4.5, 5 years now, I've been marketing direct to sellers and rehabbing. Still do some rehabs. I do a lot of wholesaling and I do a lot of wholetailing, which means I buy the property, do very little work, and then sell it retail. My office is in Hewlett. Please come by. Anybody is welcome. I operate in Nassau and Suffolk. I'm trying to really narrow down my geography to really do mostly Nassau and just a little bit of Suffolk. I really don't like driving far out. Last year, I did over 45 deals, with about half of them wholesale, where I just went into contract and assigned the contract, or the other half I closed and either rehabbed or wholetailed, which basically means I did a light rehab. Sometimes I do no rehab. So first 15 months of the Nassau County REIA. So more than 70 REIA members have come to the office. Several REIA members have brought in deals that I co-wholesaled with them. Several members have bought wholesale deals from me. Several members have borrowed from me on their flips. So let's talk about the current real estate market, right? It's eventually going to become a tremendous opportunity for real estate investors. I know I've been saying it for a few months, and it's very interesting what's going on. So for me, really, March, April, May were dead months. I accomplished nothing. I couldn't sell. I had 11 deals in contract to sell that I couldn't sell, and I couldn't really market for new deals. But June, July, and August have been really strong. July was one of my best months, really, with almost no marketing. I usually do 7 to 8 transactions per month, which means 3 to 4 buys and 3 to 4 sells. August was very busy with almost no marketing. I booked a lot of money in August, and I spent very, very little on marketing. I just turned on all my marketing channels in September. So I'm starting direct mails going out tomorrow. I have been RVMing, ringless voicemailing, cold calling, should be a comma after that, texting, and even some pay-per-click that I'm paying for. So everything is on, and I am going full blown into all of them. So I am sure the market's going to go down. Now, why am I so sure? So to me, it's just staring everybody plainly in the face, but there's hundreds of billions of dollars that are really gone from the economy, right? Anybody working in hospitality, so hotels, convention centers, if you're in the travel industry, if you're in the food service industry, or you supply any of those industries, you're in big trouble, right? There are a huge number of jobs that are not coming back for a long time. They may come back in a year or two, but the economy is going to be bad for a while. Many people were collecting much more in unemployment for a long time, or getting paid through a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, because it was free for the employers to pay them. I got a PPP loan and an EIDL loan. I paid people in March and April that weren't doing much for me, but I'm getting forgiven, and I don't have to pay back the PPP loan. The EIDL I do. But this all ended. This whole bullshit ended a few weeks ago. No more federal unemployment, and I believe that the government can only prop up this economy for so long. So, I mean, these are the things that are going on. Manhattan right now used to have 1.2 million people that came in, commuted to work there every day. There's less than 100,000 people working in Manhattan on an average day now. 8% have gone back. So, I mean, just think about the people that clean the offices, Think about all the food trucks. Think about everybody that sells stuff to people in Manhattan. There's over 1.1 million people that just aren't showing up to work, that are working out of their house. Okay. This was just in realtor.com. It's talking about a bubble. It's about to burst. Like, market's super hot, but it's almost unfathomable to me that this can last very long. CNN, this was last week, that we're going to be in an economic slump for a long time. I think it's almost miraculous that it hasn't hit yet, but I think it's going to hit soon. And I think that's going to be great. We'll actually go back to, it's going to be great for business, because I think when really for the last 12 years, the average homeowner has believed that the longer he holds his house, the more he's going to get for it. And when things turn and the media acknowledges that things have turned, I think it's going to be great for us. So we're going to be able to buy a lot more properties. All right, we're going to have to buy at a deeper discount. We're going to have to make certain assumptions about what we can sell them for. But I feel very strongly that it's going to be great for business. Okay, so today's topic is estimating repairs for wholesaling or rehabbing. This is part 2 of 2. So just to recap some of the things that I said at the last meeting, and the last meeting is recorded. You can get it if there's anything I gloss over on the recap. But this is really not easy to teach, right? I get asked all the time. I'm concerned about estimating repairs. I'm concerned I'm going to go into a property. I'm not going to know how much the repairs are. I'm going to give a price that's too high, and then I'm going to get screwed. It's very hard to teach, and you almost have to learn it via experience, because every house is different. Even every room is different, right? I love to be able to say, oh, a kitchen costs $10,000, but every kitchen is different. And what you have to do in that kitchen is different. And then every contractor that you're going to use is different. And really the important part, and what I've been focused on last week and this week, is deciding what to do or not to do. When I started in this business, that was one of my harder things. And now I've pretty much got it down to more of a science. So I'm going to try and teach it anyway. So, and by the way, I go into this much more in detail in my course if anybody's interested. I actually provide pictures. But let's talk about last meeting. The last meeting, we were talking about the exterior. So the outside fascia, that's whatever's covering the outside of the house. The roof has to be leak-free. The windows should be double paned. They should stay open and lock closed. And all the mechanical systems have to work. So we went through that in detail at the last meeting. Today we're going to talk about the inside, right? Kitchen, bathrooms, flooring, and walls, which really are the only things that need to be done. So let's talk about that. This is a recap. Part 1 was exterior, right? So this is exactly what I just said. Mechanical systems consist of heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical systems. All those things have to work. We spoke about that last time. Now, when I started doing this business, I wanted to be Tariq El Moussa from Flip or Flop. I had this idiotic notion that my houses were going to be the nicest houses, and there was no reason why anybody would not buy my house. That's stupid thinking, because there's always a reason why somebody won't buy your house. It might be the location, it might be the size, it might be the style. And the idea that you're going to make this perfect house that's good for every buyer is just idiocy. And that's how I thought for a while. Because what's happened for the last 10 years, maybe even 12 years, is the gap between prices for perfect houses, I'm talking about a 9 or a 10 out of 10, and the price for just a passable house, or a 4 or a 5 out of 10, has been narrowing. There are areas now where if you buy a house that's old, and you spend $100,000 to make it new, you're only going to get $50,000 more for that house. Right? I had that exact situation in Floral Park. It was a super hot area a few years ago. I bought a house. It was not a great house. There was a tenant who treated it like crap, and I didn't do anything to it. I just cleaned it out. I just had a cleanup crew come in, and I think I sold it for $600, and the ARV on that house was like $650. So that really was one of the houses that opened my eyes to see. This was like 5 years ago. Opened my eyes to see that you want to do as little work as possible, not as much work as possible. So for the first 4 years in business, I gutted everything. I opened concept everything, took down walls, made it beautiful, staged it. And it was a mistake, because I definitely spent money and time on houses that I didn't need to. I'm not saying I need to spend any money on the house, but properties where I did $60,000 worth of work, I could have got away with $20,000 worth of work. So 5 years ago, I really changed the way I looked at it and the way I looked at every house, and it's helped me significantly. So why I now look at every house to see how little work I can do, as opposed to how much work I can do. Whatever you think is necessary could be the first thing the buyer undoes. Okay, I used to make open concept houses where I used to open up. I used to buy a lot of capes, and the first thing I did was knock down the wall between the kitchen and the cape and the living area. And I can tell you on several occasions, the first thing people told me was, "I'm putting up a wall back here," and I was in shock, right? Because I had watched Flip or Flop for so many years that everybody wanted open concept. But people told me things like, I sold to an Indian guy. He said, I cook with curry and I need a door here because I'm going to stink up the house. I talked to other people who said, I don't want people looking at, a woman didn't want people looking at her in the kitchen, whatever it is. But the thing that you think is the most important thing could be the first thing that the buyer doesn't want. Now, the truth is you can always do more work, always, right? If that's the feedback you get from buyers. And I just, at our next top secret meeting that I'm going to reveal at the end, I'm going to show you a house in Elmont where I wasn't going to do the countertops, and I got feedback from a lot of buyers that said they hated the countertops. So I did the countertops. It was $1,000. So it's very rare that somebody's going to say, "Oh, I love this house. If only you added 2 more bedrooms on it," or someone's going to say, "I love this house. If only you had taken 4 walls down." People don't have the vision to see that. They may tell you something specific, this door is bad or something tiny, but it never really happens that people give me feedback that they want more work. Like I said, they might tell me they want new countertops, that kind of thing, or new appliances, something. We'll talk about that more later. But you always want to price your house lower, right? So when I first started, really for 4 years, when I looked at these things, I would look at ARV and I would say my house is going to be tip top of the market, right? Capes in 2013 were going for $400,000 at Elmont, and I wanted $405,000 for my capes. But what I didn't realize is that if you priced them at $389, you'd sell them a hell of a lot faster. And if you save $20,000 in work, you could. I didn't figure that out for a while. So doing less work means less surprises, less time, less cost, less problems, less of everything that you want to avoid. So now we're talking about kitchen, right? I think the most important room in any house is the kitchen, right? Women, if you're selling a house to a couple with a man and a woman, women are usually much more involved in the buying decisions, right? The men are like, whatever she wants, you're going to get that probably 4 out of 5 times. So I don't want to get into like sexist or racist stereotypes or anything, but some women see the kitchen as a reflection of themselves, or they see it as a room that they're going to end up spending a lot of time in. For them, it's a personal thing. So if you have a nice kitchen as opposed to a crappy kitchen, it's a huge selling point for a house, right? Now, ideally, every kitchen would have brand new cabinets, brand new countertops, brand new appliances, right? But we don't live in an ideal world. That's probably what I did for the first 4 years. But if you can keep the existing cabinetry, we're going to talk more, it's a huge money saver, right? It can be tricky, but just avoiding that part of the kitchen is a huge deal. So cabinets has to look okay, right? I've painted cabinets on occasion. Very often I won't, but all the drawers and the doors have to work. They have to open and close. Sometimes they can be repaired, right? So I bought houses where the cabinets looked okay, but the drawers were all messed up, and I paid somebody just to fix the drawers where they would replace the tracks. Counters can usually be replaced while keeping the existing cabinetry. On the house that we're going to go to, if you come next week, I didn't change the cabinets. I just changed the countertops. And appliances really should all be stainless steel, right? I cannot for the life of me understand. I see flips sometimes where the guy bought a stove and a refrigerator, but didn't replace like the dishwasher. Like, to me, it's insane. They should all match, right? I just did a wholesale deal in Seaford where the only thing I did was change the stove, right? Because the refrigerator and dishwasher were stainless and the stove was white. So I just bought a new stove, like a range. Appliance is not expensive, right? I usually spend around $2,000 to do a 4-piece appliance set. That's a refrigerator, range, a microwave above the range, which I don't always do, but I do sometimes, and a dishwasher. So you're talking about $2,000, $2,500. It's an incredibly good way to spend your money if you need it. You can get all new appliances in a kitchen for $2,000 to $3,000. There are people who have personal experience where they bought a Sub-Zero fridge and they think that it's going to cost $25,000 to do new appliances. It doesn't need to cost that, and you can get that from a million places, including PC Richards. So Cabinet costs really have dropped dramatically over the past 10 years because of really beautiful RTA cabinets, that's ready to assemble cabinets from China. What that means is that they ship these cabinets broken down in pieces, flat, so they can ship a ton of them in a container. They bring them here and somebody puts them together. So I have Chinese kitchen guys, if anybody needs kitchen guys, they assemble these things super fast and install them, and these are beautiful. I'm talking about soft closed doors. You would never know that 15 minutes before this thing was lying in a box this high, but that is how it works. Cabinet costs have gone down significantly. So I can usually replace an entire kitchen's cabinets for less than $8,000, sometimes much less. I just did a kitchen for like $4,000, and it wasn't a tiny kitchen either. And that's including assembly and installation. So, but it depends on the size and the configuration, right? Every kitchen's different. So smaller kitchens will be less and bigger kitchens will be more. And you got to forget and put out of your mind the colors and the styles you like. And you got to just use less expensive options. I use white shaker almost every time. It's super cheap. Sometimes I'll use a honey shaker, but whatever is the cheapest, because really whatever you like may be the one thing that the buyer doesn't like. So I use white a lot. It makes small kitchens look bigger. It looks clean. And for the flooring, any clean tile, right? I try to keep the tile, even if the tile isn't great in the kitchen, as long as I can clean it and make it look okay. Right? Lighter shades also make the room look better. They get dirty faster, but it makes the room look bigger. Any kind of tile on the floor should be okay. Linoleum is not okay. Okay, there are certain floor coverings that are not okay. Now, for small spaces, what I used to do sometimes, I used to run laminate throughout of the entire living space, so through the living room, dining area, and the kitchen, and it makes the whole space look bigger. Now let's talk about countertops. If you're replacing, you should always put in granite. Always. I'm talking even in a rental, because the difference between a granite countertop and a crappy, I don't know what they call it, Formica countertop on most kitchens, unless you have a tremendous amount of counter space, it could be $1,000. The house, if you come next week on Butler, it cost me $1,000 for granite. It would have cost me $800 to put in Formica. Someone have to cut it, match the sides. It's just stupid to not do granite. I don't understand why people don't do that. I see it all the time, and it makes me bananas. It is such a small additional expense, and to some buyers, it's a huge deal. So counters usually cost me less than $3,500 installed. That's even on a decent sized kitchen. Forgot what I pay per square foot. I have a guy that I used to use. So you got to be careful. Sometimes, like, you replace a counter and you think it's going to work with the cabinetry, but sometimes sometimes not the counters, Jesus, the cabinets fall apart. Whoops, sorry. That was wrong. That's supposed to be the cabinets fall apart. So sometimes you pull off the old countertops and the cabinets have rot, like next to somewhere where there's water, and they fall apart. And then you got to replace the cabinets. It can happen. Now, there are things you see on TV, like really nice faucets that cost $400, or farmhouse sinks. They're nice, but you got to know your market and see if they're worth the extra expense. If you're selling a house for $800,000, it might be something to think about. If you're selling a house for $400,000, you don't need it. And I used to go out of my way to do things for $400,000 houses. And when I stopped doing it, I didn't sell the houses for any less money. So don't spend money on things that aren't really going to provide you with any kind of return. So in general, and what I've just said is that I preach doing as little work as possible. I often do choose to do some extra work in the kitchen, because kitchens do sell houses. Again, I believe it's the most important house in the kitchen for anybody who does what we do. So if I'm really on the fence about cabinets, counters, or an appliance, I'll usually choose to replace them in the kitchen. That's where I'm going to err on the side of spending money. Sometimes you see very small kitchens, so you'll see a cabinet, it's a tiny kitchen, and you have to start thinking, this is really bad. So if you can expand it, which all that means is that if there isn't a wall, you just sort of run a few extra lower cabinets, or maybe take the refrigerator out of a tiny little space, take the refrigerator and put it somewhere else, and run a cabinet around it, and now you have a 36-inch wide space with countertops and upper and lower cabinets. You can do that. I expanded them a lot, but you got to be careful, because you want to avoid structural work. So I recently wholesaled a house in Floral Park where there was a half a bathroom right next to the kitchen. And I really was thinking about expanding the kitchen, but I'd have to move the half a bathroom and it would become impossible. I wholesaled it because I didn't want to end up dealing with that. Extra seating areas, like from an island, right? Islands are great, which all an island is just a bunch of lower cabinets and a countertop. It's not like some crazy thing. You just got to run electrical to it before you put there and run plumbing to it if you have a sink in it. It's not like an incredibly expensive thing. Or a peninsula where you're just going to stick a countertop out of existing cabinetry. They're worth doing, but you just avoid structural work if you can. Like, don't take down a supporting wall to do that. And most entire kitchens can be redone for less than $18,000. That's the truth. And that's even with labor. I usually pay much less, but it depends. And bigger kitchens are going to be more, and higher end kitchens are going to be a little more. But I don't spend more than that on most kitchens. Let's talk about bathrooms. So ideally, every bathroom would have brand new tiles, all new fixtures, new plumbing, all these things, right? The fixtures are the toilet, the sink, the shower, the tub. But whether you need to do work or not do work to a bathroom is not simple. So during this period of time where I was rehabbing everything, I remember we bought a house. Still remember the address, 288 Travis Avenue in Elmont. And it had one bathroom that was a disaster on the second floor, and one bathroom that was sort of okay. Like, it looks like it had been redone like 15 years ago. And I had such a struggle with whether to do anything with that bathroom. And I got to tell you, I didn't do anything. And I don't think I sold it for a penny less than if I would have redone the entire bathroom. And those days when I redid a bathroom, I ripped out everything in that bathroom. So it's not an easy decision. You have to decide. We're going to talk more about bathrooms, but if it's a master bathroom, then it should look really good, right? Because whoever's buying that house, that's the bathroom you know they're going to use. If it's the only bathroom in the house, it should look really good because everybody knows that's the bathroom they're going to use, right? I've done a lot of 3-1 tiny houses and 2-1 tiny houses. And if I do them, if I'm buying them and not wholesaling them, that bathroom is going to be redone. But if it's a children's bathroom, right, which is like the second bathroom in a colonial on the second floor, or a third bathroom, right? Like besides, let's say there's a third bathroom on the first floor, or it's a basement bathroom that people aren't going to use. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be functional. Selling something now in Hempstead has a bathroom in the basement. It's not great, but it's a third bathroom, so I didn't care. But you want to avoid retiling, right? Just like in a kitchen, you want to avoid doing the cabinets. You want to avoid retiling. That's a key to save money. I'm going to talk about how you can do that. So in general, just replacing a toilet or a vanity, not expensive. If it's a small vanity, you're talking about, with the toilet and the vanity, you're talking about $400. And you can get beautiful looking vanities in Home Depot. They're beautiful. Marble on top, matching mirror, beautiful. $200, $300, depending on the width. If you have a big one with a double sink, it could cost $1,200. But most of the time, it's not expensive to do that. But once you replace a tub or a shower assembly, like a shower body behind, it's always a big deal. Because when you take out the tub, you got to take out the lower level of tiles. And if you're doing a shower body, you got to break the tiles to get behind it. It always starts a cascade of problems. You find other plumbing problems you didn't know about. You find things you don't want to know about that lead to more things. And you think, oh, I can match these tiles. I mean, I've said this so many times. I can get these tiles. I know these exact tiles. I'm going to get them. And then you break through the tiles to change the shower body. And then you can't. And then you think, oh, I'm just going to put those tiles back. But it leads to a whole mess that ends up costing, I mean, gutting a bathroom is not cheap. Gutting a bathroom and replacing a bathroom could be $8,000. Now, what we see a lot in our area is older bathrooms, right, with horrible color tiles, right? I just had a house in Freeport of Massapequa had pink tiles, right? All pink tiles. And I've seen blue tiles or yellow tiles. So you look at that and you go, I got to redo this bathroom. Guess what? You don't have to redo the bathroom. There is an amazing shortcut that saves you a fortune. So older bathrooms with bathrooms, or if you have a crappy looking tub, sometimes the tub's got scratches, the tub looks cruddy. You can reglaze them. So I have a guy who reglazes for me. And when he reglazes a tub, it looks brand new. And he will reglaze all the walls in a bathroom with pink, yellow, or blue tiles to white. And I've done this several times. Right? Again, not for the master bathroom, or maybe not for the only bathroom, but if it's a second bathroom and it's all white and then subway tile, it's not bad. And you can do an entire bathroom, including the tub, for less than $1,000. The tub itself is like $300-400. You don't want to do this on the floor. You can do it on the floor, but when you step on it, it's going to scrape and you're going to see what's underneath it. So you want to spend the money to tile the floor, but that's not expensive, because how big do you think a flooring? How many tiles do you get to retile a bathroom floor? It's not a lot. It's talking about $100. So reglazing is a big deal. And if anybody wants to name my reglazer, I will give him. He's a great guy. It comes in at night. He is amazing, and it completely transforms a bathroom. So this is coming also from experience. Buy toilets that come with seats. I can tell you, I saw recently a guy, I know him, he's a plumber. He tried to get into house flipping, and he didn't put toilet seats on his toilets. And it was a big house. He was asking over $1 million, had 5 bathrooms, no toilet seats on there. And he's like, oh, people want their own toilet seats. People have no vision. Put freaking toilet seats on there. So I remember we did a house, and it was a multifamily, and we decided to save money. We bought crappy toilets with no seats. And just finding the seats that match, not always the same size. Always buy toilets with seats. So spending an extra $100 or $200 on a nicer vanity seat combo is usually worth it, right? Again, you can go to Home Depot and you can see them on display. It's another $100 and it looks better. It's worth it. If you do need to retile, don't spend that much on the actual tiles. Buy cheap tiles, but spend a little more on the labor to install them. Because if you install tiles badly, and I have unfortunately done dozens of bathrooms with not such great tile installation, sometimes, it's a turnoff for a lot of buyers. Some people don't care, but some people do. So you could do fancy shower heads, body sprays, all these things, but you have to know your market to determine if it's necessary. I did that once. I was selling a house for $700,000 at Franklin Square, but I'm not going to do that for a $400,000 house somewhere else. So the flooring in a bathroom should always be tiles. It's usually a very small amount, very small. If you buy expensive tiles, it's not a lot of money. Ahmad, I'll get to your question later. Okay. Let's talk about flooring outside, right? Ideally, an entire house, except the kitchen and bathroom, should have new or refinished hardwood. That's ideal. But almost, and I've done this many times, you go into a house, it's got hardwood underneath a ton of shit, where it's got hardwood that's littered with pet stains, right? At this point in my life, as sick as this is going to sound, I know the difference in smell between dog piss and cat piss. I can go walk into a house and know right away, cats or dogs. And very often, pet urine stains will go through carpet onto hardwood. And people look at that and they go, oh, we got to redo the whole floor. It's not true, right? You can sand that crap out of there. You actually don't sand it out, but when you sand hardwood, right? And the thing with hardwood is it's thick, right? It's at least 3/4 of an inch thick. You can sand it, and then when you stain it dark, nothing shows up there. The smell is gone. It looks perfect. You just stain it dark. I did what I used to do? Walnut? I think I did walnut every time. We did dark floors. So almost any hardwood can be sanded and stained to look perfect. I have a great flooring guy. He repairs, he matches. He's a genius. And he's cheap. Less than $2 a square foot. I think it's $1.50 a square foot. That's not a lot of money, right? If you're in a normal house, what do you do? How much hardwood is there besides if you take out the kitchen? I used to do capes all the time. You're talking about 800, 900 square feet. Not expensive. For $1.50, you're talking about $1,600 to make the place look gorgeous. Now, installing new hardwood costs $5, $7 per square foot, depending on the wood. It can cost a lot more. But so often, if you need new flooring, you can use laminate, right? I use thicker laminates. I used to buy them all the time at lumber liquidators. Oh, I think so. And $2 a square foot, you can get like a good 12 millimeter laminate with a pad. It looks almost as good. And you can go over to the existing flooring. You don't have to redo it. That also saves a lot of money. But you got to do it right. You need a decent installer. It's got to lay flat. It can't look crappy with like bubbles. It's got to be good. So if you're buying laminate, buy good laminate. Spend $2 a square foot on the laminate. Don't skimp out on the laminate. But you got to know your market to determine what's needed. Like there are houses where you got to have hardwood. People are going to look at laminate and know it. But that's only in the higher end areas. If you're doing a house for $400,000 or $500,000 and there's decent looking laminate there, most people aren't going to know the difference between hardwood and laminate. Okay, let's talk about walls, right? Walls, ideally, the whole house will have brand new sheetrock and everything will be beautiful. But as long as the walls are cleaned and painted, it's good enough 99% of the time, right? You can't have water stains. So I've honestly seen guys flip a house and leave a water stain on there. I mean, I almost wanted to punch him in the face. Oh, but it's an old leak. Dude, paint the freaking stain out so no one knows there's a leak there, right? And there's all these kinds of things you can do in a house. Chair rail, like it's like a trim, super fancy light fixtures, right? You can put that in any house, and if I used a carpenter who just needed to put up chair rail, like it was his thing. He was an old guy. I don't know if he's still around. If your guy wants to do it, or you can find inexpensive, you go to Home Depot and there's a sale on a funky looking light fixture, you can do it, but you got to know what's good. And again, you'll see a fixture that'll look amazing, and that could be the one thing that repulses buyers. What is that? That looks crazy. You don't want to create anything that's controversial. You want things that are simple and easy. Shakespeare asks, how do you deal with old squeaky floors? I don't know. That's a good question. You can do that. You can repair, you got to call a wood flooring guy can possibly fix it. Sometimes you can't fix it on staircase. It's harder. You might have to replace the parts of the stairs. But I've never really bought a house where I had terrible squeaky floors on it. So I'm not really sure. But I had a situation once on the second floor where it was bad. It was because the subflooring was a problem, and I had to dig it up. Okay, so you need to know your area, right? If higher finishes are required, you should know that before you start work. Now, you got to understand, anything I didn't cover is not something you should do, right? I've seen a lot of people get into rehabbing and think, I'm going to create a breakfast nook here where, a sitting area where there was an area and all these things. And it's all based on your own preference. You would like that. You got to understand that the thing that you like can be the first thing that turns somebody else off. Keep it simple and do not do anything other than what I told you, right? But there's a big difference between houses that sell for $400,000 and houses that sell for $900,000, right? Even in higher end areas, the basic principle of doing less, it still holds true. The question is, what is necessary, right? You may not be able to get away with laminate flooring if you're selling a house for $900,000. You might need hardwood, but you got to determine it by looking at recently closed sales, right? Those are your comparable sales, and see what else is listed in the area, right? How do they look? You got to go. If you really don't know, go to the open houses and check them out, and see what they sell for. Okay, so let's get into the 7 ways I can help you if anybody needs help. So the first thing is, if I can help you get a list of prospects, you can call them. I can get you a cheap price on the list, the same list I pay. I can get you probate leads at reduced prices for most counties around New York City. I can get you a discount subscription to PropStream. I think I'm the only guy who does that. You can comp out properties. You can also get lists from it. I think I'm the only guy who does that. I can skip trace lists for you to get phone numbers at very low prices, getting you tier 1 data. My data is so good it even tells you which 2-hour window every day of the week the phone is most likely used. So I have VAs with available time if you want to use them. They can call for you, and I can get you a great CRM, the one I use, which is RE Simply, at a discount too. I also have a course to teach you pretty much everything I know. So this is just a quick recap on the course. The course is 9 modules, a 90 to 120-minute webinar in each of the modules. There's lots of additional content too. The standard price of the course is $847. It's definitely going up. I got 60 people who signed up already. I've gotten excellent feedback. I have a lot of testimonials. If you sign up in July, you believe it's September? I think you can still use that code, but I got to check. The coupon code is end of August. I got to change this slide. I apologize, but that coupon's going to end soon. I don't know, certainly by the end of the year. And I think the price is going to go up if you're interested. Just to go over what the 9 modules of the course are. The first one is mindset. So that's both mindset for success. I talk about something that screwed with my head for a while until I figured out what it was and fixed it. Also a mindset of how to think about real estate, because a lot of people think about real estate in ways that are not helpful. The second module is all about what's different in New York, and there's a lot of things different in New York, both good and bad. The third are choices you need to make before you start, which is a lot of what you want to do. Do you want to wholesale? Do you want to rehab? Where do you want to operate? The fourth is really important. It's about marketing and getting leads. The fifth is about sales conversion, making offers. Really, what do you say to a seller? The sixth is funding, so getting money for your properties and for your deals, and do you need it, and when you should do it. The seventh is rehabbing and wholesaling, so it talks a lot about what we said today about estimating repairs. The eighth is finding buyers, so both cash buyers and retail buyers. And the ninth is about closing. There's a bonus module with some other material that people ask for. Okay, so the big announcement is we're going to have our we're going to try to have our first in-person meeting since February. It's going to be a quick peek. So just to recap what we used to do, we used to have a meeting once a month in Valley Stream. And then another 2 weeks later, we would have a quick peek at a project that I was working on. So we're going to try to do this. It's going to be next week, Thursday, September 10th. I think that's right. At 207 Butler Boulevard in Elmont. It's from 6 p.m. to 6:30. It's only a half hour. So don't come that late because I want to get in and out of there pretty quickly. We'll see if it works. I mean, we'll try to adhere to CDC guidelines and stay away from each other. I usually get at these quick peeks only between 10 and 20 people. So I figure we can work it out. And you'll see what I did in the house, what I didn't do in the house. I'm in contract to sell it, but choices I could have made. It'll be pretty. A lot of it will apply to things that we spoke about in this meeting. And we're gonna have our next virtual meeting will be September 17th, a week after, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. So some free resources. You can look at my YouTube channel, which is Wholesaling and Flipping in New York. There's lots of free content there. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You can like my Facebook page, which is now called Real Property. I'm trying to change the name, and Facebook's giving me lots of problems because my company is Real Property Buyers. You can get updates on what I'm doing. So anytime I get into contract or I sell something, I put it up there. I'm part of a national mastermind called Investor Fuel. So two of the members, one is John Martinez, who is like the premier sales trainer for real estate investors. So what you actually say to a seller, which is completely counterintuitive, you wouldn't imagine it. So he gives away a lot of free stuff at midwestrev.com. And then Mike Hambright, who runs the mastermind, does a Flip Nerd podcast. Does it almost like every day. He's on 1,600 of them. He's been doing it for like 6 years. And he gives away a lot of information. He's a great guy. So if you haven't signed up for this meetup group, then go to meetup.com/Nassau-County-REIA so you can get updates about future meetings. And now we're going to take questions. It's 6:40, so 6:30. I'm going to go at least 22 minutes, and I'll go as long as anybody wants. It can be about anything. Does not have to be about something we discussed today. Any questions are fine. So we have a couple of questions here. So Ahmad asks, I know you mentioned in the past you must have an EMD to lock up a wholesale deal. Would my end buyer be able to put up funds EMD, or is that not recommended? Not only is it not recommended, it's also absolutely impossible. Doesn't work, Ahmad. I know people do that in other places, but when there's a seller's attorney, as there is in New York, you got to give him your EMD, and your end buyer that you're doing, the only way to keep him obligated to close in your name is to do an assignment, and you need a separate deposit for that. You're going to have to put up the deposit first. I don't see any way of not putting up a deposit to the seller's attorney. I mean, there might be a way to make it work, but if there is, I just don't know it. Ed asks, when you have multiple projects going on at once, do you have a GC or project manager that runs the day-to-day for them? So I don't. People do. You got to decide if you have the time to do it or not. It depends. Multiple can be 2 and multiple can be 15. I had 15 rehabs going on at one time, and I was the moron that drove around yelling at people all day. There were GCs on the jobs that were doing 2 or 3 at a time, but I realized some of these guys could not handle multiple jobs. But that's a very open, wide question, and it really depends. Like, I think you can probably manage 2. I think you, as a project manager / rehab or owner, can probably manage 2 rehabs at a time. More than 2, it gets complicated because there's a lot of balls in the air that are being juggled, right? Material purchases and, the rehab has to go in a certain sequence, right? Some contractors don't even understand that, right? A lot of contractors don't understand that. They want to do the floors. They want to do the floors before they paint the walls. Like, that's just stupid, right? Or they want to go buy materials every day instead of buying them once. Like, there's a lot of stuff you have to be on top of. If you, I think it's easy, even without a lot of experience, to manage 2 rehabs at a time. But more than that, you got to start thinking about what you're going to do. I have no more questions on the screen. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, I'm happy to answer. Or you can type it. And I'm not leaving for another 19 minutes, so somebody should really come up with a question. Oh, Deborah, okay. Have you done lease purchase options to acquire properties to wholesale? I have tried to. I've never done one successfully. It's hard in our area to do lease options because taxes are high and seller payments are high. And the only way a real good lease option works, there's 2 things. So let me just explain what a lease option is. So a lease option is basically buying a property Not buying a property. You are leasing a property with an option to buy. And the idea, and it works better in other parts of the country, is that a seller wants X dollars and you can give it to them. You just can't give it to them right now. So you say you want $150,000 for your house. I'll give you $150,000, but you lease it to me for $2,000. I'm making up numbers, for $2,000 a month, and then I'll give you $150,000 in 3 years. And what you then do is you find a tenant buyer. So there are a lot of tenant buyers out there. Those are people who want to buy a house but can't qualify, usually for one of two reasons. Well, it could be three reasons. One of them makes it a deal killer, though. Either they don't have any money saved up, so they can't come with down payment. That's somebody you want to avoid. They don't show enough income at this time, but that will change over time. So it's an income issue or it's a credit issue that can be repaired over time. So they can't qualify for a traditional loan, but they want to buy a property. So there are tons of people like that. So once you lock up a lease purchase or lease option deal, you can then assign that to a tenant buyer and say, hey, tenant buyer, give me a $5,000 non-refundable option deposit. And then you'll have the option to buy this property that I just had. That's one option. You can assign it to them. Or you can go in the middle and do what's called a sandwich lease option, where you are lease optioning it from the seller, and then you then lease option it to the buyer. So I've always wanted to do that sandwich lease situation, but the problem on the deals where I almost had it was that they were asking for the seller needed so much monthly that the tenant buyer wasn't willing to put that up. So I recently had something in Hempstead. Now Hempstead is a area that has village taxes in addition to the exorbitant Nassau County taxes that we pay, and the seller needed about $4,000 a month just to cover their expenses, the seller needed like $3,500 a month, and I put it out there at $4,000 a month so that I have some cash flow, also to cover in case the tenant buyer flakes out, because you're on the hook for it, and nobody wanted to pay $4,000 for this house in Hempstead, which makes sense because most houses like that were renting for $3,200, $3,300. So it's harder in our area where the taxes are high and the purchase prices are so high. If you're in areas where the purchase prices are $70,000 or $100,000, this all works much easier. We don't have a lot of the areas like that in our areas. So I've not ever done one to completion, but I'd love to. You need the right situation. It has to make sense. Okay, we got 16 more minutes. Any questions? Type them or unmute yourself and ask them. It's fine too. Anybody? Somebody. I hope somebody's typing. Jomo says, would you spend money on curb appeal for a mid or higher end rehab? So that's again, it really depends on how it looks. So curb appeal, I'm assuming you mean like landscaping. The exterior of the house has to look okay. So that I'm going to do every time. I am not going to re-side a house where I can repaint the fascia, whatever's out there. But I saw a house today where the fascia was rotting and it was bad. That's a house I might re-side. For landscaping, it's not an easy thing. First of all, it really depends on time of the year also. Like in a month from now, you're not going to be able to buy squat regarding landscaping. You're not going to buy a bush, and no one's going to put it in once it gets cold. So if it's spring, maybe. It depends on how it looks now. If it just looks okay, I'll probably leave it. If it looks disgusting, or what happened a bunch of times as a contractor that was doing a roof or the contractor that was doing the exterior, just like kill the bushes, then maybe I'll spend money to put bushes back. But again, it's not as simple as you think. You can't really do it in the winter. Things don't grow. The supply houses don't sell. So it's only for certain times of the year. Even now, it's hard to find landscaping. So in most of the time, not. I used to budget for it on every house like $1,000, but I don't budget anymore for that, and I don't do it that often. It really depends on the situation. If it looks horrific, or there's something I want to cover, right? Let's say the lower end of the house has got some issues, I might spend money on landscaping to make sure nobody sees it. But curb appeal is a very loose term that can be defined in many different ways, right? I don't believe that, I used to think that you had to do that or else, because it had to look amazing when people were coming up there. I remember I did a cape in Valley Stream, and I spent extra money and time to put what the hell is that called? That nail light. It's siding that looks like cedar shingles, and I don't know what I spent, an extra $1,000, and my contractor bitched and moaned that he couldn't cut it. There's no way I needed that. There's just no way. It was just stupid thinking. Like, I'm telling you, 90% of the things you think are going to sell the house are not going to sell the house, right? And that's just the truth, right? If the house looks good and it's clean and the kitchens and bathrooms are okay and the exterior is okay and the roof's not leaking, you're going to sell your house. It's going to be fine, right? So be very wary of spending extra money on things in rehabs. Deborah asks, if you want to do a rehab, where's a good place to start, i.e. an expensive area? Everything we do should be geared towards inexpensive areas. Everything. One of the stupidest mistakes I made, and I made so many stupid mistakes, is that I stayed away from certain lower end areas for years. I was convinced Freeport wasn't good. I was convinced Roosevelt wasn't good. I was a moron. Those were the best areas I should have been in. And all those areas have gone up and are doing great. So everything we do should be geared towards inexpensive areas, right? If someone is asking me where to start anything, wholesaling, rehabbing, whatever they're doing, you're going to find more deals and better deals and deeper deals in inexpensive areas for sure. Not that you can't find a deal in expensive areas. I've done $7, $8, even $900,000 houses. But if you want to look for deals, don't look in the expensive areas. So for sure, do a rehab in an inexpensive area if you're looking. But listen, for sure, without a doubt, right? And just as what we're discussing today, like you don't want to start thinking about, what brand of shower body am I buying in this area? And if you're doing a $900,000 house, you might want to think about that. If you're doing a $400,000 house, you don't have to think about that. So always, everything we do should be geared towards less expensive areas, for sure. Certainly when you start. Jomo says, what's the minimum work needed done for a basement? I would say if I buy a basement and it's finished, I'll leave it finished. If it's unfinished, I'm not finishing it. I have finished basements, I should say. That's not always true. But I wouldn't finish a basement today. It's another thing that you start with, and it ends up just becoming a big deal. So let me qualify that more. If I'm selling a property in an area and every comp I look at has a finished basement and everything for sale is a finished basement, and my property is a non-finished basement, I'm going to probably finish the basement. But if I look and there are comps with unfinished basements that are going for, and you'll find very often they'll go with similar prices as ones with finished basements, then I'm not going to do it. So it depends. It really depends on the area and the market. I've sold that house that I was talking about in Franklin Square was $700,000, great house. Basement was completely unfinished. I didn't want to get into it. I didn't want to start it. It was a huge basement. I didn't want to do it. Now, if it was finished before I got there, I'd probably keep it finished. But I think most people understand that a basement can be finished, that it's something they can think about doing later. And I've sold houses with finished basements where it was pretty gross, right? I didn't really do that much to it. As long as it's functional, I may not have done anything. I'm trying to think of a house now where the basement was pretty gross. It was in Elmont. I forgot the address, but basement wasn't great. But the basement, it was basically for storage, and one day they can make it nicer if they want. So there's no minimum work needed to be done to a basement. You just have to know your area, right? There are plenty of cities where a finished basement with an outside separate entrance and a bathroom and let's say a kitchen or a place for a kitchen will pay for itself, right? There are areas where people want to rent illegally or have a family member move in there. So if there's a separate entrance already, that might be a really good selling point. But if there isn't a separate entrance, then they're not renting it out. I wouldn't do it. So I very, very rarely finish a basement that's not finished, or do much to a basement that is finished, right? It can't stink of mold, right? Something like that. That's an obvious problem. Can't be visible mold. Like there are certain things that you see, but every basement's really different. Shakespeare asks, can you explain how PropStream works and how much does it cost? Sure. So if you want to comp out properties, and in our business, you need to be able to comp out properties. That means figure out a value. There's only two ways I find that I consider acceptable. The first is to be licensed or have access to multiple listing service. So either you get licensed or somebody who's licensed who's giving you access. That is the best way, having access to multiple listing service. The second best way is having access to PropStream. PropStream costs $97 a month, but I get you back 10% after you have it for 3 months. And PropStream is almost as good. I'd say it's 85% as good as multiple listing service. So you can comp out properties, but in addition, PropStream will allow you to get lists of prospects up to 10,000 a month for $97. So PropStream will give you data all over the country. So it's not just here, it's anywhere in the country. So PropStream is a pretty unique service. Now, I never used to push PropStream until about a year ago because their data in New York stunk, but they've improved significantly. So you can get a very good feel for what a property is worth. You must be able to do that, right? I know people that tell me, oh, I spoke to this guy and he has his VA do comps for him. I think that's insane to me, right? Because I think it's a skill you absolutely need to know. It's a skill that if it gets screwed up is going to cost you a fortune, right? If a VA messes up, doesn't know there's a difference in West Hempstead between one side of the railroad tracks and the other tracks and comps that out. So I think it's a skill that you need to have. And I think it's important that it's done. So I would not outsource that skill, and you need to comp out. So either access to multiple listing service, that's the best, or access to PropStream is 1A. But that's how PropStream works. And you get a 7-day trial. I have a link I can give you where you'll get a discount. You get a free 7-day trial. You can use whatever you want for 7 days. You can play around with it. It's not the simplest to use, but it's pretty simple. Okay, we got 6 more minutes. I got no questions here. Oh, Deborah has a question. Do you have like a certain templates that you use in most houses, same color, certain appliances? I did when I was doing a lot of so appliances, no. Appliances, I would literally call my appliance guy and say, give me stainless steel set. Doesn't have to be the same brand, right? I don't care about that, and I don't think buyers do, especially if it's all new. But what can I get a good stainless steel? I used to go to there was a time where I would go with P.C. Richards and say, I need all 4 pieces for $2,000. Make it work, or they would do it. Templates, I had colors that I used. I used to use gray, but I don't do that many rehabs now. So I really work with what's there. It's easy to have a template when Tarek El Pinter here was gut renovating everything, and it was a clean slate. But now I'm going to go look at the house and I'm going to say, okay, I'm not redoing that. So I don't want everything to be different color, right? If the room looks a certain way. So I'm going to look at what's there and I'm going to go with it. So for example, I did a house recently in Malvern where the cabinets were like a honey colored cabinet. And so I just redid under the same cabinets because it matched the countertops and whatever the kit was in the rest of the kitchen. So I look at what's there and I figure out what it is. Right? I did gray. Gray was really my colors that I painted. Lighter gray, darker gray. I could use a designer once to give me this stupid thing, these paint colors that did it once. But it doesn't really matter. Believe me, just don't go crazy. I see a lot of rehabbers who paint every room a different color, green, pink, yellow. Oh, it looks so lively. Don't do that. Right, be just subdued colors, right? I don't do beige anymore, but I do light grays. Any light gray is fine for the colors. White on the ceilings, it's simple stuff. White on the trim. So again, I work with what's there. We got 4 more minutes. Any other questions? Again, you can unmute and talk. I'll be happy to answer you. Shakespeare asked, do you have any experience with this application called Privy? No, not sure what it is. Jomo, advice on getting a responsible contractor. That is hard. I have a whole section in my course about it. It is not easy. It is not easy. The problem is not that you just need a responsible contractor. You need a contractor who's not going to charge you retail prices. Right? You cannot use a standard retail home remodeler and get a quote from him and do deals like that. You need to explain to this guy, I am a rehabber. I cannot pay full retail, right? And you've got to make him believe that you're going to make up this difference in profit with volume. Volume to a lot of contractors is almost as important as making money. Most contractors are terrible businessmen, terrible. A lot of them were subcontractors, and then they just decided they don't want to work for somebody. A lot of these guys don't have a clue. But what they're all terrified of is losing guys. So they get a guy who works for them. So they get a guy who works for them, and they need to keep him busy. So I wouldn't say promise, but you insinuate that you're going to be doing multiple deals, and then you're going to keep him busy for a long time, and he'll give you discounted work. Certainly on the first job, they'll all give you a good deal. They're all good on the first job, all of them. It's when you second and third job that they usually turn to crap. It's very hard to find good contractors. Like I said, a vast majority of them are horrible businessmen. They don't know what they're doing, and they cause tremendous amounts of aggravation. It's just the truth, which is one of the reasons why I prefer wholesaling. So somebody else has to deal with that and not me. That's the truth. Okay, we have 2 more minutes, but I'll keep going as long as the questions keep coming.
Actually, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Mark. How you doing?
All right. Quick question. If you find a property that has the potential of being a legal multi, in other words, maybe a duplex, would you go through the hassle of making it a legal?
In our area, no, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's almost impossible. So let me tell you what happened to me in Elmont. I bought a house. It was set up like a 3-family, right? It was taxed as a 2-family, and it had 3 units, right? Basement, apartment, clearly illegal, first floor, and a second floor. Big property. I remember the address, 300 Kirkman Avenue in Elmont, 11,500 square feet. Very deep property. The rule in the town of Hempstead is you need 12,000 square feet for a legal 2. So I went to the BZA and I petitioned, and I figured this is a no-brainer. We even said to them, this is being used as a 3. We're cutting it down to a 2. But we needed a variance because we were less than 12,000 square feet. I got denied. They said no. They're not interested. Let me tell you something. In Long Island, no one's interested in rentals. No one's interested in more units. No one's interested in anything like that. They have no interest in helping you in any way. So it's almost impossible in Nassau and Suffolk County to get something approved to be a multi-unit that's being used as a single unit. Now, if it is approved already and just being used, then it's different. I just went to contract on something in Farmingdale that's a legal non-conforming 2-family. So that's great. I'm going to try and wholesale that, and I think I'm going to do great. But it's very hard to do that conversion right now. In New York City, you can. So really close to here is an area where there are people buying single families and adding, redoing them, making them into 2 families. That's a good way to make money in Queens, because a lot of the zoning in Queens is 1 or 2. They don't care. So it's not a big deal. But in Nassau, it's like impossible. And no, they don't want it. And let me tell you something. If that lot, if 300 Kirkman was 11,999 square feet, I still would have got denied. Right. So in the end, I said, screw them. And I just sold it as a 2-family. Right. I just told everyone it's taxed as a 2. I don't have a C of O as a 2. And I did fine with it. But I wanted to do the right thing. So I spent a fortune of money and time getting told to F off. So I'm not doing that again. I'll tell you that much. Now, if I can do it as of right, if I have a 12,000 square foot house, a 12,000 square foot lot, and I can convert it to a 2 as of right without going in front of a board of zoning appeals, I'll do that. But going in front of the BZA is a very difficult thing. It just took me 2 years to get something subdivided that should have been approved in 3 months. It's difficult. It takes time and money, and it kills your deal because you got to pay so much. And if you borrowed money, you got to pay money in interest or taxes. It's just a nightmare. So it's very hard in this area to make that work. But if you have something that you can build as of right, then absolutely do it for sure. But it's truth is you got to look, because I've seen areas where two families go for less than one families. I know that sounds nuts, but it's true. I've seen areas like that. You got to really know your area. So I've seen areas where if you bought a two family, you'd want to convert it to one family. There's an area near me. It's called Cedarhurst. It's a little village, and you can get $1 million for a nice one family there. You probably couldn't get near that for a two family where it's two small things. People want to live and they want a big house, so you got to know the area. Shakespeare says, I'm right. When I bought my house in Elmont, my realtor told me that it would be easy, but it was a nightmare. It was denied. I had to pay an electrician to remove the second electric meter. Yeah. So, and you get on their radar, Shakespeare, and it's not good. Yeah. Nothing's easy to get changed. Yeah. But there's a huge amount of properties in Nassau where they're taxed as a two family, but they don't have a C of O as a two family. So you can use that for a buyer. I'll put in the listing taxed as a two. So what that means is that the lender, for appraisal purposes, he'll appraise it as a two, because the appraiser will go look at the county website and go, it's a two family. The appraiser is never going to go to the village or the municipality to get a C of O. And if you can get it appraised as a two, then you can borrow money on it as a two. I had something like that in Elmont also on Kirkman Avenue, where it was taxed as a two. It was definitely not a legal two. I think I had 3 units in it, but I refinanced it as a two, and I sold it as a two, and I just made it clear. I go, listen, there's no C of O of a two, but it's taxed as a two, and the county has it as a two. You just got to be honest. You can't lie. That's it. So those are things you can take advantage of, because if you're doing this, you can understand that some buyers are going to be okay with that. Some buyers will be okay. Now their attorney may not, but the buyer could be okay with it. Mir asks, what is the procedure if I want to approach a short sale, a pre-foreclosure? I was offering in many houses, the agent telling I'm offering too low on my calculation, telling if I purchase more. So those are all over the place. So short sales are a whole different planet, right? Because it's completely out of your control whether the lender's going to ever agree to your price or not. I'm actually doing a short sale now, ironically, but I've traditionally stepped away from them because I didn't like having my deposit, even if it was small, sitting somewhere for a year while the lender told me that they're not going to give me my price. Now, pre-foreclosure is the one list I recommend people do not approach. Now, you can get deals off of it. I know people who do, but that's the one list in our area that has two problems. First of all, it's going to get inundated with people marketing to them. So you get a list pendants on your property and you're in pre-foreclosure, theoretically, you're going to get 100 pieces of mail, right? 80 of them are going to be from attorneys asking to represent you, and 20 of them are going to be people buying your house. They call any of those attorneys, the first thing the attorney is going to say, and this is the second problem with pre-foreclosures, is you got plenty of time, right? Uncontested foreclosures here, uncontested are going to be take 2 years, and an attorney can make it go 5 years. And there are foreclosures that take 12 years in New York all the time. So I don't recommend you going after pre-foreclosures. Short sales, I also don't recommend you go after, even though they work once in a while. But the agents are telling you you're offering too low. I don't know what you're offering. I don't know what the situation is. But if I want to wholesale a deal, my general rule and guideline is I'm trying to buy it at 70% of ARV minus repairs, and I'm going to try to sell it to a rehabber at 80% of ARV minus repairs. But Mir, if you're looking at agents, stuff that's listed, then you are cruising for a bruising. It is very hard for somebody like us to buy properties that are listed. I'm not saying it never happens. I just did buy a property that was listed, but it was a crazy situation. It was listed for $700, and they sold it to me for $450. If I speak to a seller and he tells me this property is listed, I go, listen, we're not going to be a good fit, but tell me your story. It almost never works out if a property is listed that we're going to be able to buy it at enough of a discount. It's very rare. Now, having said that, of course, there are exceptions. I bought a property Valley Stream that was about to be listed for $310. I told the guy I'll pay you $300. I don't want it on the market. I bought it for $300, didn't do anything to it, and sold it for $400. I knew he had mispriced it, but most of the time, once it hits the market, think about what's going on now. Other real estate investors are going to see it. Retail buyers are going to see it. It's very unlikely you're going to buy things that are listed. If you want to make money in this business, you got to work on off-market properties. You got to go direct to seller. Shakespeare asked, do you have any deals that you want to offload? Trying to find and close my first deal before the end of the year. Shakespeare, I just signed an assignment contract on something in Locust Valley. I have this deal, this 2-family in Farmingdale that I didn't advertise yet because I don't have access yet. But I don't know what you want to do, Shakespeare. If you want to rehab it, it's not even a rehab. It's more of a buy and hold. But I'm working on a bunch of things that I'm gonna have soon. So I don't have anything this minute, but I'm definitely gonna have deals. So get on my list and you'll see them. All right, it's 7:07. I'll give it another minute. Any questions can be asked about anything. I'll be happy to answer them. But if nobody asks a question for 2 minutes, I'm gonna punch out. Get me some dinner. Anybody? Anyone? Bueller? I'll give it another minute. I'll answer anything. Anything. But if not, we're going to call it. Oh, Ed says thank you. That's usually the beginning and the end when somebody says thank you. Thank you, Ed, for saying thank you. But I will still answer questions till 7:09. Jomo, it is my pleasure. How do we get on your buyers list? I'll put my contact information. Contact me. Second. Of course, no, I can't. What's going on here? Okay, here. I'll give you my office number. And my email address. Just contact me. I'll get you on the list. Michael, you are welcome. I think it's 7:09, so we're going to end it. Again, anybody can reach me at those numbers I just sent. If you have any questions that you forgot to ask, feel free to contact me, and I will be happy to help you. Thanks, everyone. So if you want to come next week, I'll put it up on the meetup group. So the next 2 meetings, the quick peek if you want to come, and if you want to come on the virtual meeting in 2 weeks. Oh, a question. What is the procedure for getting mortgage broker license? Jesus, mortgage broker license. I had one of those. I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. What is it? It's a pain in the balls is what it is. I don't know. You don't need a mortgage broker license. Why the hell would you want that? You got to get your real estate license. That's what you need in this business, not a mortgage broker license. You got to go with a mortgage company. You have to be with a licensed mortgage company to get that. I had that right when it started. Ugh, a nightmare. All right, but that's it. Amir, if you have any other questions, call me. My number's up there. Bye-bye, everyone. I finished 75-hour class. That's not a mortgage broker's license, Amir. That is the real estate license. Amir, call me. Goodbye.